Hello everybody, this is Dave Kettlewell, the administrator for Adult Figure Skating and Love of Figure Skating, the two Facebook groups. I noticed that you really seem to enjoy the video that I put together about a week ago that talked about blades. And so I thought I would share some more detailed information. What we're going to be talking about today is what can go wrong with the angle that the blade is put on the boot, and what's going to happen if that happens, and what do you do about it. Okay, so in the last video we covered the idea that there is no marking on a boot which identifies to the technician exactly where the blade is supposed to go. You can use the overall shape of the sole of the boot as a guide, but it's very much an individualized thing. We talked about the fact that a blade position might need to move as the blade breaks in because it has a tendency to tilt the skate maybe this way, which means that the blade might have to go a little bit more that way to skate flat. Okay, we talked about that. And where it belonged in the front, and a little bit about the back. And the fact that the sideways slots are there so that the blade can be wiggled around a little bit by the technician prior to drilling and putting in more holes. The more you jump, the more those lock screws mean something. We're going to get into some other things now. Okay, well, what can we say relating to the angle that the blade is put on relating to the boot? Well, you can imagine that as the blade is mounted further and further to the side, okay, like over here, if the blade were located all the way over here, the boot would tip that way, right? And if the blade were mounted all the way over on this side, it would flip that way. And in a small way, that's exactly what happens, is that a blade can be too much to the left and it will fall in a little bit. It could be a little bit too much to this side and fall that way. And you might say, well, would I know that? Yeah, you would. As an example, suppose that the blade had been mounted a little bit too far this way and that the boot was falling that way. In that instance, an inside edge would be very easy for you to skate, but an outside edge would require a tremendous shift of your weight over your left hip, let's say on a left boot, to pick up that outside edge. But you really want the movement from inside edge to outside edge to be equal in what it takes to do that. So if you're skating today and you're finding that you're having a devil of a time getting that right or left outside edge, forward edge, you very well may have the problem that the blade is a little bit too far to that way. Okay. Now, just to make the mix a little bit more interesting, have you ever been skating and you feel this like scrubby noise in the back of the boot while you skate, like it's like slipping or something? That can be caused by a kilter, where the blade, instead of being like this, is like this, so it's like that, where it's extending too far on the outside on the heel and too far on the inside here. You can't really do that with a skating blade. The blade does have to ride about in the middle, and it has to be positioned for a straight run. Because what that means when it's kiltered is a part of the blade is too far on the outside, so the ball, your skate's going to fall this way in the front, but just the opposite in the back, and you end up with a very, very unstable skate. The only way to get them on right is to generally eyeball. Normally the front blade here, the front of the blade is going to usually be a little bit to the inside of the center line of the boot. and the back's going to be inside a little bit, okay? And this is the correct position, okay? This is an absolutely correct lay of a blade. So again, a little bit to the inside up here and a little bit to the inside here. But that's where you get on the ice with the side slits and you skate slowly. And if it were me with a brand new boot, I would probably not lace them too tight in the beginning to set the blade, because you're going to lock the boot so hard it'll push it out of position on the foot. So I'd probably keep the skates tied, but quite loosely. By the way, I will tell you that if you're having trouble with your boots not providing enough support, you can double cross your laces. When you get to, let's say, this point here, what you can do is you can take your laces and twirl them. 1, 2, 3, bring it down, take it over the first hook, lock them again, and you can get a very strong lock at the ankle, but still be able to rock forward in this sector of the boot because it's not as tight up here. And a lot of professionals will skate with their boots that way, and you have to when they're very, very stiff. Okay, so let's get back to the blades then. We did talk about in the last video that the plane of the sole must be compatible with the plane of the heel, and if not, the blade will propeller twist. Okay, so when I was setting blades, the way I would do it, I'd go to the rink, drill the holes for the sideways and then have them go forward edges, left and right, and backwards. Slow speed, not fast, slow speed. And I could tell by the comfort of the skater, and then you loosen them up and wiggle them and put them on. Now, could you do that yourself? Yeah, I think so. If you're going to drill a hole for a screw that's a slider slot, you want to use a smaller drill bit than the screw so it grips into the leather. Okay, now some boots today are leather and some of them are a little bit more modern where they're kind of a rivet lock type. I'm not talking about those, you may need equipment to do that. This leather sole you could still do yourself. As far as once you're sure that the skate blade is in a good position and it's broken in a little bit, you could go ahead and put in, you know, maybe another 2 more lock screws. If you're doing double jumps, you're probably going to have all those screws in. But a correct blade, you can tell when you look at it that it's straight. One that's not on there, it will curve and you'll go, oh my gosh, the blade's not straight. You know, it's curved, you can see. That'll happen if the heel is not in the same plane as the sole here. And it will twist and it will take it. Also, it's very possible just by drilling the hole incorrectly on one of the tapered screw holes here in the blade, if it's in the wrong place, it can bend that blade right out. So the screws must be, the screw holes have to be drilled when the blade is relaxed. In other words, you have to make sure that the blade is relaxed, you know, where it's free here and can wiggle a little bit after you've locked this in. And then you come in and you have to put that hole exactly in the center of the area that, the little round area that you're drilling. It must be absolutely totally centered and it cannot be kiltered. It not only has to be in the center of the hole, okay, but the screw can't go in at an angle because what it does is it shoves the blade right over. So really, you know, blades are a very delicate thing to get on there properly. A properly mounted blade is in a relaxed condition as far as its flex goes. When it's tied onto the boot, it's in the correct plane approximately to the heel and to the front of the boot. And it will give you an easy transition through the things you're trying to do, which include 3 turns. And of course your basic 4 edges, outside, inside, forward, and outside, inside, backward. You'll also find that things like 3 turns are much easier when a blade's properly mounted. You can imagine that if the blade were too far to the outside, you're going to have a devil of a time on a 3 turn getting that outside edge, and be falling onto the inside, on the inside edge after you do your 3-turn. You're on the inside back edge. So blades that are on there improperly cause a lot of trouble. Technicians are not all equal. You gotta find somebody who's good. You can tell because they'll have what appears to be a tremendous amount of skill with what they do. And they'll usually be a superb sharpener. And they may even have custom made some gear. People at rinks are typically very poor technicians. The people who are good work with professional level skaters and very good amateur skaters. If somebody's working on the skates for top amateurs in your area, you can pretty well figure they know what they're doing because those amateur competitors know. If they're doing a lot of recreational skates, that's not who you want to work with. Next time I do a video, I'm going to talk to you about how you can ruin skates by sharpening them improperly. And I will give just a little quick taste of that. These are run through the machine by hand, and if you hit them too hard up in this section, you will actually grind away more of the edge, more of the blade here, less of it here, and then a lot of times they'll whip it and kick it on the heel, and so you'll end up with a different rocker than the blade had when it was new. Very, very common, or flattening of this section up here, which makes your 3 turns and jumps a little tougher. So, but we'll get into more detail on the damage that can be done with sharpening, how to properly sharpen, and then how to use honing stones, which are a way to keep your blades consistently correct. Hope this helps.